Don't tell Jarek, but it's definitely harder than it looks.
You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm back!
Yay! I'm so excited! I try not to be disappointed when Jarek records with me because I do love him. And everyone always loves when he is here.
Uh-huh.
Like, my parents always comment that, like, my dad is always like, I love the rapport between you and Jarek. And I'm like, well, I mean, we're married.
So,
and, like,
you guys do have chemistry, so that's good.
Yeah. And, like, listeners will comment, and I'm like, I appreciate it, but when I write my episodes, I write them for you. And so I'm like,
I feel so special. I felt so bad. I mean, I literally felt
obviously
awful.
I thought you were dying, so
I honestly, if I had not gone to the hospital when I did, I was already contemplating, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the hospital.
Oh God.
I might actually have to call an ambulance.
Oh no.
And for all of our U.S. listeners, we all know you don't want to call the ambulance because that's
call an Uber.
Absurdly expensive.
Yeah. If I had a regular car and not a rental, you could have called a Lyft and it could have been me.
Yeah, it was a production getting out of the house for me. It was really, really tough just to get down the stairs and to the car.
Yeah.
And, I walked into the ER. So Shelton pulled up to the ER. Mm-hmm. And I walked right into the building, past the check-in desk, went straight to the waiting area and found some chairs and laid down.
Oh, God.
Or tried to. It was very uncomfortable, and I was this close to laying down on the floor.
Which I imagine would have felt good if it was like a cold, hard floor.
Well, you remember it was like 27 degrees out or something.
It was cold, too.
And it was wet because it was kind of like spitting rain.
Ew, yeah.
And I was wearing thin pajama pants and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I was carrying my sweatshirt, but the cold was helping to keep the nausea, like, at bay, or at least tolerable, or distract me, I guess, from the nausea. But no, they're checking me in, and I'm, like, sideways on the wheelchair. Can't even open my eyes because I'm so miserable. And they're like, "You're freezing, sweetheart." I'm like, they're like, "Do you want a blanket or something?" I'm like, "No, the cold helps. I just need to lay down. Can I please lay down?" And they're, doing vitals. Did I tell you what my blood pressure was?
Yeah, it was like super low.
90/50.
Jeez. I don't know how you were conscious.
Which was ironic that earlier that day, like 12 hours prior to that, it was really high. It was like 135/98 or something. Jeez. Which is weird because I normally have perfect blood pressure. Yeah. But anyway, I didn't die.
Yeah,
so
you're still here. And to catch everyone up, this was from a stomach bug, right?
Yeah, so the way I've told everyone is, Shelton and I had a stomach bug competition, and I won.
She won.
I mean, we literally were taking turns going to the bathroom to vomit earlier that night. But I was the one who didn't quit.
And Jarek
Shelton
and I
went and fell asleep. It's like, I've puked enough. I'm fine now.
Oh, and Jarek and I got a phone call Sunday morning from Shelton. So casual as could possibly be. Which is very Shelton.
Yeah.
That was, just, hey, just wonder if you guys could do us a big favor. And we were like, yeah, sure. What do you need? I was thinking it was going to be like, can you watch Walker for a minute because, work stuff or whatever. And then he goes, can you pick up Katy from the hospital? And we literally weren't even out of bed. I was like, oh my God!
I even sent a message to the Snapchat group saying a similar thing. Like, hey, is anyone going to be free a little later on today to come and pick me up from the hospital?
That's one of those things you need to preface, like, before you tell someone, like, I was in a car accident. You have to be like, first of all, I'm okay. Second of all, I was in an accident or something. But we were like, yes, we can. Is she alive? What happened? happened? Is she okay?
One of my other favorite parts was today, actually. I finally got a response from Kara.
In the text or in the group chat?
I sent her just a snap photo
Oh.
of my arm with the catheter, the IV, doing a thumbs up in front of, like one of the machines, just so it was very clear that I was hooked up to hospital machines in a hospital. And I just had the caption on there that said Sunday Fun Day.
Nice.
And she doesn't check the Snapchats regularly, and so she just checked it today.
Oh, gosh.
It's like, what in the hell? It's like, I'm fine now.
Oh, gosh. Well, anyways. Katie's alive. We're very happy.
Yeah, no, so I won the stomach bug competition.
Yes.
And my prize was a night in the ER, 3 liters of fluids.
Nice.
Which is a lot.
That's a lot.
And a damaged kidney. A kidney injury, I think is my
just one of them,
thing.
Though, right? Is the other one okay?
I mean, who's to say?
Both of mine are fine if you want one. Actually, I took a not like a real survey to see if I could donate a kidney to someone because someone on Facebook needed one. Someone I am friends with, her husband needed one, and I'm like, what? I don't need both of mine. And he had the link. It was like just one of those things. I was like, whatever. I don't need to know you super well to give you an organ. And so
I feel like that's inviting a lot of people to come and be like, well, let's find out where she lives. She doesn't need this liver, does she?
I just very much believe that if someone, first of all, I believe the waiting list thing for organs is like jacked up, and I don't know. There's a whole thing where like you can't. I don't know. I don't know enough to explain it.
Stop. Think of what you want to say. Parents and teachers that used to have to do this to me as a child all the time, but I blame the ADHD for that one.
So there's a wait list for organs.
Yes.
But there's also like very heavy regulations on like donating organs, I think.
Well, but remember that episode of Scrubs where they were able to get a whole bunch of organs from this one person, and that person wasn't like fully vetted, and it turns out they had like hepatitis or something, and they didn't know until after, and all of the people who received these organs from this one person died.
No.
It was one of the more dramatic episodes of Scrubs.
Okay, well, I remember an episode of Law and Order SVU where some girl was like gonna die because she needed a liver, and basically there was no chance of her getting one because the organ transplant list is just like so f***ed. Anyway, that being said, all of my organs, to my knowledge, are pretty healthy, and it's just my general belief that like if someone needs it, like if someone has a condition where they just like need an organ to live,
and you've got one,
and I've got one, like I don't need to know you super well in order for me to be willing to donate that organ in a proper hospital setting.
Well, all this to say, I don't need a new kidney.
Well, good.
Basically, it's just I injured them a little bit because of the extreme dehydration. Yeah. From the whole stomach bug thing. And, I mean, basically, it was, I was finally able to pee and give a urine sample. And they're like, oh, these levels are, more than double what they should be, so that just is a sign of an injured kidney. Right. Because of dehydration. And the way, I was like, so is it like permanently damaged or will it heal itself? And my understanding is that basically it's kind of like, a sunburn. Yes, the sunburn will go away, your skin will get better, but your skin is still damaged from that sunburn. Right. Like, it's just an accumulation of damage over years. So my kidneys are fine now. Right. But, there's always going to have that, like, oh yeah, one time.
That one time you were too dehydrated.
Yeah. I've never been sick like that before in my entire life. I mean, I've had stomach bugs before, but normally I get sick, a couple times, couple trips to the bathroom, and then I'm able to just pass out and sleep it off. Wake up, have some more fluids the next day, and I'm fine. Not this one. Like, I'm pretty sure I lost, like, stomach lining.
Oh, gosh.
Because, trying to eat was painful. Like, it was one of those, my stomach is angry because it's empty, and it's angry when I try to put something in it.
Yeah. Yikes.
But I'm fine now.
Yay. Well, I'm glad you're back.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And because you're back, we're doing a second shout-out to our new patron. Because shout-outs with Jarek don't count.
Yeah.
So this is a second / the official shout out for our new patron, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Also, I'm going to include his kids in this shout out because he sent us a message that his kids listen also.
Oh, great.
So hi, Tim's kids.
Do we know what, like, age range they are?
No,
okay.
I didn't ask.
Well, I guess I wonder if they fit the Dante warning label.
I didn't ask in the message, but Tim, let us know if your kids are in the age range that they should be included in the warnings label. Then we can add them. It can be a Dante or Tim's kids safe episode, which today's episode I think is safe.
Well, maybe they're like early teens or whatever. So like Dante is what, 9 or so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe if they're like 13 or 14, we can have 2 different warning levels.
Ooh, that'd be good. He did say their favorite episode was the spaghetti episode. He also used the correct name, which I forgot because it's not right in front of me, which I told Hannah Cox because she recommended it because it's a Laurinburg, North Carolina local legend.
That's right. Yep.
He's doing it. The fan is going right now.
Hi, Ghosty. Did you miss me? Spin the fan if you're glad that I'm back.
I asked it to spin the fan the other way yesterday, and it didn't do anything. So Jarek thinks it's off balance. I know. Anyways, thanks again for being a patron, Tim. Also, thanks for messaging us. I love getting messages from people and finding out about everyone. He's a retired cop.
Oh, fun.
In Montana, I think. And
I love Montana.
I've never been, but it sounds beautiful.
It is. I got to go into the Beartooth Mountains.
Ooh.
And so this was like early August, and I remember wearing, some jeans, flip-flops, and like a thin flannel with the sleeves rolled up. Mm-hmm. And it was like just this perfect, wonderful, beautiful day, and we driving around, and I'm like, this is nice. Like, it's warm without being hot. But then there's also, like, snowpacks right over there. So I'm, like, playing in the grass, and then I walk 10 feet over, and I'm playing in the snow. And I'm like, this is a weird experience. Jeans and flip-flops and, technically long sleeves. Anyway, my entire experience of Montana was magical.
Nice. I was double-checking. It is Montana. I just had to...
Good. I just didn't want to wax poetic about the wrong state.
All right. So today's episode is a little different. I decided to jumpstart the Irrational Fears
awesome
series with my own newfound fear. When you just discover a new fear?
Yes. As a parent, I'm afraid of everything now.
Great. So I'm just going to tell you about a new fear I discovered for myself.
All right, bring it on.
It's easily avoidable in my life, which I'm happy about, but this whole story gave me anxiety. I've also had to take my as-needed anxiety meds twice in the last, week and a half, and I don't know what is going on, so. Also, I don't know if this is ever going to stop, so sorry.
Yeah. I apologize for I'm going to get... Because I can see it in the fan moving out of the corner of my eye.
I can see it in the reflection of one of the things.
Yeah, I can see, the shadow up here, and it's just...
Sorry.
It's not your fault. Ghosty, come on, man. We're trying to record. I feel like it's just speeding up, too, but it's not.
It's just going at, a pretty steady...
Hopefully. Ghost...
Come on, Ghost.
Can you please let us just record without being distracted?
Yeah, we're easily distracted.
Stop. All right. Well.
All right, well.
It just is what it is.
How do you feel about caves?
I love caves.
Do you?
I mean, they do, freak me out. Like the idea of a cave in or being stuck in them. Like that one guy that was, a big time caver, like explored and, mapped all these caves and then eventually got stuck and then died in one. But it was like a long, slow, drawn out thing. That freaks me out. But I do love going caving and splunking. One time I was crawling and we were on all fours. Or, elbows and knees. And for the first and only time in my life, I got to utter the words, "My butt's too big." My butt was hitting the top, so I had to go down on my belly. Nice. Butt's too big to get through here.
Well...
Do they freak you out?
Yes. Yeah, being underground. I'm going to tell you the story today of Floyd Collins. Who is that guy that got stuck in a cave?
All right.
All right. So I told Katie before she got here that her dossier is part paper, part digital because my printer ran out of ink. So I'm going to go ahead and text you your first picture.
Okay.
The only two that I printed, I think, are... One's a picture of Floyd's brother because he's a babe. And one, they were the only two that came out. And then one is a diagram that will better help us understand as we get there. So Let me send this picture first. This is a picture of Floyd. All right. So Floyd Collins, his name is William Floyd Collins, was born July 20th, 1887 in Auburn, Kentucky. He grew up near Mammoth Cave on his family's 200-acre farm. He was the third of 8 children. I'm going to tell you their names. You only have to really remember, one of them.
Floyd's.
Floyd. 2 of them. Okay. Elizabeth was the oldest, and unfortunately she died as a baby. Then there was James, who went by Jim, and then Floyd, Annie, Andy Lee, Marshall, Nellie, and Homer. Homer's the other one you have to remember. Homer's the babe that I printed a picture of.
Okay.
His father, his name was Leonidas, but went by Lee, or Lee Sr., because I think Andy Lee also went by Lee.
Okay.
So Lee Sr. was a fundamentalist Baptist and a teetotaler, and kind of a, asshole. Love the story. His mother,
the late 1800s.
Yeah, Lee doesn't come off great. His mother, Martha, died in 1915 of tuberculosis, and Lee Sr. remarried a widow named Cyrilda Jane Buckingham, but everyone just called her Miss Jane. The Collins family were, by no stretch of the imagination, wealthy, but they did okay. So...
I mean, well enough for, 9 kids?
8 kids? Well, 7 surviving kids. And a 200-acre farm. But, so they grew their own crops. So some of them they sold to neighbors. During cave tourist season, which was a thing, the women would bake pies and sell them to Mammoth Cave Hotel and the tourists in the area. And in the winter, the men trapped and sold furs and cut timber for the railroad. So they did all right, and that they had money to pay their bills, but they also worked for their money, and part of that might have been because they had 7 kids to help do the work. All of the children had some familiarity with caves since they provided a source of income for so many in the area, but Floyd showed a particular interest in them as early as age 6. At that age, he wandered into Salt's Cave, which, just go with names of caves here. I don't really know where any of them are.
Okay.
This place called Salt's Cave. It was about a mile away from their farm. He just wandered into that by himself at 6 years old. I honestly...
Again, as a parent, everything terrifies me.
I don't know how...
Like this.
I don't know how anyone raised kids. I'm just you just lose track of your kid for a couple hours at a time, and they... just showed up. Were you just lucky every single night that all 7 of your kids showed up back at the house? It's like, okay, Floyd's been off in some cave a mile from home.
I mean, I was an only child, and I feel like my parents were probably still like, well, is she coming home?
Yeah, like, good grief. So, Floyd's off wandering in caves at age 6. As he got older, he was known to be a little bit of a daredevil. He was unbothered by danger. He's like the exact opposite of me. He was more at home underneath the ground than above it. Again, opposite of me. Very much more at home exactly on the ground. Neither
in the water.
Yes.
Nor underground, nor in the air.
Yes. Nothing in between. Feet firmly on the ground. Preferably, like just sea level. Perfect for me. Great. Flat ground. Maybe a mountain in the distance as a view.
Yep.
Perfect. Sometimes Floyd would be late for school, or he would miss school entirely because he was just out exploring caves by himself. In 1912, Floyd, who was 25, met Edmund Turner, who hired him as a cave guide and taught him more technical or formal aspects of caving, such as geology and science.
He would have learned that in school if he wasn't too busy being in the caves.
Yeah, I think he had something like an 8th grade education or something, which I don't think was uncommon at the time. It's
probably not, especially, working on a farm.
Yeah.
And then, working as a, cave guide.
Yeah.
Whatnot.
And it's very rural Kentucky, so whatever. In 1916, Floyd, who was 29, discovered by accident a large cave on the family farm. His father agreed to let him have half the profits if they commercialized this cave and made it profitable. And with his siblings' help, Floyd turned it into a commercial attraction called Crystal Cave. But because it was so remote and the last spot on the tourist trail, it didn't get very much action.
People were caved out by...
Yeah, no one wanted to go that far out.
Better to be caved out than caved in.
I feel like it's kind of like the murder hole that Jarek and I visited on our anniversary trip. Except we didn't get to go into that. Nor would I have, because as we just discussed, I will not go underground.
Have you ever been caving?
I have been inside caves.
Okay.
They scare me.
They're scary, but they're really cool.
I'll do the tours where you're just kind of walking. If they're gonna do that thing.
There's some that you can walk upright through, and a lot of some of them will have actual lighted paths.
Yeah, that's the shit I'll do.
I think it's the Lost World or something. There's one in East Tennessee that's like that. And there's one that you can actually get in little boats, and they'll paddle you around because there's underground lakes. It's all lit, and it's really cool.
Yeah, but if you fall out of the boat,
they can still see you, and you just climb back in the boat. It's a contained lake there, and it's not very big. Where do you think you're gonna go?
What lives in that water?
Oh, well, yeah, the giant squid. But...
Exactly. Yeah. I know we did a cave up in Grandfather Mountain when I was 9, before I had all of my fears. Last year, or 2 years ago, we did Woodward Cave up in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Which is a walk through, nice and easy. I think we posted pictures to the podcast of that one. But when I was a senior in high school and went to Belize, we did, I think it's called Jaguar Paw. Which, again, I was 17 years old and hadn't unlocked all of these fears in my life. And so we just did this tropical cave, and at the end is this big body of water where you can't see the bottom because it's so dark. And I had classmates that would just swim out to this big rock and jump in the water, and I was like, no, you can't. I was at least smart enough to know, if you can't see the water, you can't see what's in it.
That's the Lost Sea.
Yeah, no thank you.
It's all lit and pretty. And...
No. Those fish are blind. They will run into you. No.
Well, why would you be in the water in the first place?
You could fall.
What kind of shenanigans are you engaging in that you're going to fall out of the boat?
Other people could be engaged in shenanigans.
There are not that many people on the boat.
I don't trust that you could get some cave people.
How about you and me, just the two of us, go on a boat? Would you go then?
Maybe.
Not even Jarek, because Jarek is prone to shenanigans.
Yeah, Jarek is prone to shenanigans. Maybe. We'll see. If the Parch brothers are nowhere in sight, if they don't come at all, maybe. I'll think about it. Well, we'll get through this, and then we'll see how you feel about caves after this. They're scary.
I'm for them.
We'll see how you feel after this.
I'm for them.
Okay, well, we'll see how you feel after this. We're just getting started. Okay.
So, Crystal Caves, not so hot.
Yes. Although, for the record, when people would go and Floyd was, like, there to give a tour, it was, like, a really great cave. It's just no one wanted to make it out there. Like, the cave was legit. Floyd would give amazing tours because he's, like, the most enthusiastic cave person there is. And also, Floyd is, like, spending all of this time that there's not tourists, all of that free time he's spending exploring deeper passages of this cave. And he's doing that, like, mostly alone, which is probably not the safest thing.
Not ideal.
But he discovered what's called the Big Room. And that actually wasn't rediscovered until 1940. And when they rediscovered it in 1940, they found Floyd's discarded bean cans in there. And that's how they knew he had previously discovered it. I'll also say, before, because it'll make you angry later on, Floyd does just kind of leave garbage in caves, which I think both of us would disagree with, but we're just going to have to let that slide for now.
Pack out what you pack in.
Yeah, just take, what is it? Take only pictures, leave only footprints or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'd put that in, like, parks or something. It's like,
Yeah.
leave only memories, or leave only...
Submit your memories.
take only pictures, leave only something else. It basically means clean up your shit.
Yeah.
Take your trash with you.
I think it's the Boy Scouts that's pack out what you pack in.
Yeah. Floyd did not abide by that rule.
Floyd apparently was not a Boy Scout.
He left his bean cans everywhere.
Rude.
So because Floyd is doing all of his exploring alone, and because he is this daredevil, it was very normal for him to be gone for hours or even days at a time while exploring.
Hence the bean cans.
Which is like a dangerous precedent to set for yourself, I would also say.
Yeah, because in the event that you get stuck or something, you might be in there for a few days before people think to come and look for you.
Yes.
Take a sip.
Yes, go ahead and take a sip. Although you already know.
I already know.
All right. In late 1924, Lee Sr., the dad, was urging Floyd to sell Crystal Cave because it wasn't profitable. But Floyd refused because he was still convinced that he could turn it around. He thought Crystal's many passages that he had discovered likely connected to one or more of the surrounding caves, and he also thought he could find a new opening for Crystal Cave that connected to a surrounding cave and would be closer or more convenient for tourists. So he's like, don't sell it yet. I'm going to find an opening that's closer that'll bring in more people. So he goes on this mission to, like, find a new opening for this cave. So he negotiated a deal with 3 men, Beasley Doyle, that's one name.
Brutal name.
Beasley Doyle. This episode is full of great baby names, if anyone is looking. Leonidas. Great name. Beasley. Edward Estes. And Jesse Lee. And all 3 of these men had land, I think it was just like land that was all together. And Floyd thought that this land might have a possible entrance on it. So the deal he made was this. Floyd would search the land for caverns, aka Floyd would do all the work. And in return, Floyd would get to keep half of any profits that they made. And the other half of the profits would be split between the 3 men.
Okay.
And then the men would alternate housing Floyd as he worked. So,
I mean, it seems like a fair deal. Like,
yeah.
I mean, he's not going to be there that often. Like,
yeah.
And he's doing all the things.
Yeah.
They literally don't have to do anything except provide a roof for him.
And it's like,
I mean, maybe some cans of beans.
Yeah. That's like, just give him a place to sleep and...
Just let him roam your property.
Yeah. And dig and whatever. And this land was about 300 yards from the Cave City Highway. So it was a really good location for, like, if tourists were going to come through. So in January of 1925, Floyd started working on a sand hole on Doyle's property that he thought likely led to a cavern. He spent 3 weeks excavating this hole into, like, an entrance. And he eventually had to use dynamite to blow some limestone out of the way to kind of enlarge the entrance. And then on January 30th, that's our important date, Floyd worked his way down through a narrow passage that he had created about 115 feet from the mouth of the cave and about 55 feet underground. Several areas of the passage, which he had already gotten through before during his work, were as narrow as 10 inches wide. It's very small. And many of them he had to crawl or wriggle through on his belly or on his back. And when he got to the spot that he had blown up with dynamite, he essentially had to, quote, burrow through limestone rubble to get through. So there's like a crevice, but like everything around it is kind of loose rock, I think. This is where that diagram will come in handy in a minute. He emerges onto a ledge and finds a 60-foot cavity, which he partially descends because he's crazy. But then at this point, his lantern's starting to go out, so he's like, oh, I'll just come back later. I'll have plenty of time to, like, go down this giant cavity and look around. So he goes back up through the crevice of limestone rubble head first and on his back. And he is pushing the lantern up first, and then he's like kind of wiggling up like a worm. And he gets to the narrowest part and he shoves the lantern ahead into like a cubby hole. And when he does that, the lantern tips over and goes out. So he has no light. But he had been in situations before where a lantern went out and he's caving in the dark. So that's not like a huge deal for him. It's just like...
It's more of an inconvenience.
Yes, inconvenient. So he keeps working and he uses his right foot to kick himself forward. And when he does this, he accidentally dislodges a large hanging rock. And when he had been coming down, he had seen this rock and avoided it because it looked kind of precarious. But now that he's kind of in the dark and going up, he doesn't see
know where
it.
it is.
Yeah. So he kicks this rock. It dislodges. When it dislodges, his left leg is laying, there's like a V-shaped indentation on the floor. So his left leg is in that indentation. The rock falls on it. So his leg isn't crushed. It's just pinned down, which is like a small mercy here.
I know it's coming, but it's still like my chest is getting tight.
I know. So this rock pins his leg down. So he kicks with his right foot to try and like free himself. And that just kind of dislodges more rocks and just kind of packs it in more. So he's very stuck right now. So currently he is lying on his left side at a 45-degree angle. His left arm is pinned beneath him. Both of his feet are completely pinned down at this point, and his right arm is kind of held close to his chest. His first thought is to scream to see if anyone can hear him by chance, because he's 55 feet underground. So he just screams until he's exhausted. And then he falls asleep. So you can look at your dossier to get a better idea. The first picture should be a map. So that just kind of gives you an idea of, like, I don't know, kind of an idea of how he is stuck in, like, the way. It'll make more sense, I guess, as we talk about the rescue efforts. It's a lot of weird angles. And he was already, like, a very skilled caver and already kind of made it hard for him to get down there. So, anyways, you can reference that as much as you need to. Okay. So this was Friday morning, I believe. So, meanwhile, as we said, he set this precedent that it's not abnormal for him to be gone for, like, more than a day. So no one really goes looking for him until the following morning. That's when Doyle and Estes are like, hey, has anyone seen Floyd? Did he come back?
Never checked in.
Yeah, let's go to the cave and see what's going on. Which, by the way, we're going to start calling this Sand Cave. That's what everyone starts calling it. So Doyle and Estes go to the cave, and they bring along Estes' 17-year-old son. I'm going to pronounce this name Jewel, because that's what it looks like. It's Jewell. Okay, Jewel.
Well,
all right, so
we'll go with that.
Jewel is slender, and he's 17, and 17-year-old boys
just
are
wiry.
Yeah, but also 17-year-old boys are strong. And so they're like, hey, Jewel, you're skinny and strong. You go in that hole. So
you best believe when Critter's 17, I'll be like, Critter, you
go do that thing.
Heavy things.
So
go do manual labor.
Yeah. So they send the teenager in there. And he goes through all of these, like, narrow passages.
The squeezes.
And he starts calling Floyd's name. And when he gets close enough, Floyd answers him. And he's able to kind of tell him, I'm stuck. He's like, come down to me. And Jewel's like, no. And Jewel, understandably, is like, I'm too scared to do that. Yeah. I am a child.
Even if he were a grown adult, he's allowed to be afraid.
Yeah, you're allowed to be afraid of a very scary cave.
Well, especially if this is not a well-explored cave already. Like,
it's a completely unexplored cave.
And he is not a professional. Like, until professionals have gone in and out and, like, fully mapped and, like, just completely checked out this cave, you shouldn't have novices or, you know, people who don't know caves going in there.
I agree. Yeah, don't go in there.
I'm Team Jewel.
Agree. So Jewel's like, no, I'm not going to come all the way down to you. And to be fair, he may not have even been able to fit all the way down there because we'll find out later, very few people could actually fit into the little, like, kind of turnaround room that he had.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say, is there's the squeeze / a turnaround room.
And, like, right in here is where actually people would, like, crouch. So, like, some people can make it right here, but he's wanting people to get, like, right into the little headspace there. So it's like, no, I'll stay up here. I know that was super helpful for all of our listeners as I pointed to something.
I have a question, but I don't know if we're going to get to it.
Oh, go ahead.
Today, with today's modern technology and equipment and whatnot, would we have been able to save him?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. I am going to say no.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that because there's a bonus episode to come.
Awesome.
Because in case you thought that our modern world would save you from getting stuck and dying in a cave, don't you worry, because I have a story of just that thing happening in our modern world.
Awesome.
And modern technology couldn't save us.
Well, and then there's the soccer team, the boys.
Yes.
There was a good short documentary on that.
Oh,
that's really fascinating.
Nice. Yeah, I think one of the things that scares me so much about this situation is, like, just the kind of what you said about, like, well, is it something where it's just technology hasn't caught up to it? And it's like, no, it's just earth big, rocks heavy.
And
caves...
I mean, technology can only do so much.
Yeah, and it's like... And with the bonus episode, I mean, I should have looked. I want to say it was like a 2016 situation. Mm-hmm. But it was
there was the miners the handful of years ago, and then the boys soccer team, also a handful. Like, this is all, like, recent history in the last, like, 10, 20 years, and it took days and days and days, like, in some instances, weeks, to get people, and that's with modern technology.
Yeah,
so.
And, like, they faced a lot of those problems of, like, it's such a... Because with the soccer team, wasn't it, like, it was flooded, and they had to go up a certain way, and... Yeah,
and so, you know, with them, it was flooded, and they were trying to divert water, but, you know, it was, like, monsoon season, and they were able to divert some, but then some, like, pipes, you know, broke, and then it wasn't diverting enough anymore, and they had to actually drug the kids to get them out, so...
Yeah,
it is scary.
Yeah, it's
a scary world.
It's terrifying that, like, there can just be situations where it's like, nope, just nature wins. Just, this cave just won this situation. Spoiler alert. Sorry, everyone. Okay.
I mean, I gave it away already.
Yeah, it's true. It's fine.
Without realizing it. We could cut that out, and we could cut all of this out. But
it's fine.
I feel like this is a story a lot of people... If anyone is else an avid podcast listener, you've probably heard this one. I think the Dollop did it, I think.
Did one.
Someone else did. Not Lore, I don't think, but someone else did.
I heard it recently. What made me put it on the list is I heard it recently on an episode of You're Wrong About, when they covered, like, not sensationalized, but, like, stories that... Maybe it was sensationalized stories, but they were talking about baby Jessica falling the that's the one that made me think of you. I was like, oh, unlocked fears of moms, where your 18-month-old just falls into a well. Sorry, be careful when walkers walk around. There was just a hole in the ground.
That reminds me, I have a joke.
Oh! Well, let me get to a gruesome part, and then you can tell it. Sorry, let me get to a really sad part, and then you can tell it. Okay. It was because this story is... talks... What am I trying to say? Pause. This story is about how the media came out and covered this thing in real time, as they did baby Jessica. And that's what made me put it on my list.
Okay. So, Jules like, no, I'm not coming down there.
Yes. So, Floyd is like, all right, well then bring me some tools, and also go get my brothers, and my friends.
And maybe some food.
And maybe some food. And get help, right? So Joel comes back, and he tells his father and Doyle what's going on. And so they go to Floyd's house, which is like his dad's house, because that's where everyone lives. And they get his brother Marshall. His father, Lee Sr., had a pretty callous attitude towards the whole thing. He kind of had the attitude of like...
Well, of course he's stuck.
Yeah, like, well, he got himself...
Into this, he can get out.
Yeah, like, of course, I knew that caving would, like, get him in trouble one day. Marshall gets to the cave, and when he gets there, neighbors have already begun to gather because word of Floyd's situation has traveled, because it is small,
and
rural
this is
town.
Pre-television, so entertainment.
What are you gonna do? Marshall immediately organizes a party and starts into the cave. He only gets about 20 feet, within 20 feet of Floyd, because, again, cannot emphasize how tiny these passageways are. The final crevice was too small for him to get through. He tries to enlarge the opening so that he can get through it, but he recently had the flu, which in 1925 means he probably almost died.
Like me.
Like you.
I was definitely too weak to function.
Yeah, so his energy is not all the way there. And because it's so narrow, only one person can work at a time. So he's got to back out of there. By 4:00 p.m., Floyd's youngest brother, Homer, had arrived at the cave. You can go ahead and look at Homer, because Homer's a little babe.
Homer's a hottie?
Homer's a hottie.
Oh, yeah, he's cute.
I know. That's him with Floyd's dog, Shep.
No.
I know. Sweet baby. Homer is also, like, our favorite character in this story.
Oh, so not Team Jewel, Team Homer?
We're Team Homer.
Okay.
Jewel doesn't really make another appearance.
Well,
We can still be Team Jewel.
I appreciated him during his cameo.
Yeah. I also just appreciated that was one of the only pictures that did print before my printer gave up. Mm-hmm. And I was like,
printer's like, it's not getting any better than this.
We'll keep Hottie Homer in here. So, Homer had been out of town, and so he was coming back in town when he heard that Floyd was stuck. And so he was out of town buying a car. So he immediately went to the cave in his city clothes, like fancy city clothes. He was the most experienced caver in the family besides Floyd. And when he got there, he noted that a lot of people at the cave were just kind of like milling around, not doing anything, which did not sit well with Homer.
But at the same time, like, how much can they do? Like, if...
Yeah.
I mean, one or two people can be more or less in the cave at a time.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
I mean, you can have a handful of people in a line, but then, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, you're right.
But I understand, you know, there's people around, but nobody's doing anything, and his brother's stuck. Like, I understand his, like, stressed reaction, but...
Yeah. He also noted that one group had a campfire near the mouth of the cave, and the heat was causing ice to melt, because remember, it's January. Mm-hmm. Ice was melting and running into the mouth of the cave, which meant water was, like, trickling down eventually onto Floyd. Mm-hmm. So, like, he's essentially also, like, enduring, like, Chinese water torture, which is the kind with the dripping, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So he's, like, trapped, plus water is dripping on his head constantly.
He's just slowly getting, just damp.
Yeah, damp all the time.
Luckily, though, what I remember from when we went caving is pretty much anytime I went, like, true caving, like spelunking, at, like, not the touristy places, like the Lost Sea that I showed you. That you can go any time of year. But the other times that I've been caving, it was always in the winter because caves breathe out.
Yes, I have learned that.
And so basically, you know, it's not necessarily warm, but it's not cold. So, like...
Don't they, like, maintain a constant temperature?
I think so. I think there is. It's pretty regulated, but, and I honestly don't know, but I remember, like, walking up to the entrance of the cave and being like, it feels like there's warm air coming out of there.
Yeah.
And, like, I say warm, I mean warm compared to the 30 degrees that I was standing in. But, yeah, no, it was my first time caving. It was wild. Because, like, we drove into the middle of nowhere, and then there's just this cave, and we just walked into it, and...
You're so much more adventurous than me. I've also seen that movie, The Descent, and just, I won't... Which takes place in North Carolina, Katy. The North Carolina mountains.
I need to go see if I've
Oh my gosh. It's literally about mutants that live inside North Carolina caves. And how they'll kill you while you're spelunking in their caves. Okay. All right, so Homer immediately gets a lantern and jumps into this cave. City clothes and all. Mm-hmm. And halfway down, he has to strip down into his underwear. God bless us all.
Why isn't there pictures of that?
I don't know. He has to strip down just so he can fit through this crevice. But he's the first person to get all the way to Floyd. And he realized how small the space actually was. And he also realized this problem that if you came in feet first, you would have this tiny space to turn around in. But if you came in head first, you'd have to work upside down. So, big problem. He had someone send food down to Floyd. Do you want to guess what this trapped man ate?
Wasn't it, like, biscuits?
He ate 9 sausage sandwiches.
That was it, sausage sandwiches.
And a pint of coffee. Like,
All right, sir. You are trapped.
you're probably going to be here for a minute, bud.
Why are you drinking coffee? Why are you trying to get
Not a stitch
things
of
moving?
water. Not a stitch of water is brought to this man through this whole...
I'm just thinking of things moving through his system.
Right? And we're going to talk about that later, believe it or not. I have a direct quote. My stomach was gurgling reading this. I was like, 9 sausage sandwiches and coffee. Oh my gosh, if I had that for breakfast, I mean, if I had 1 sausage sandwich and coffee for breakfast, my first stop at work is going to be the bathroom. Like, oh man.
Well, I mean,
Y'all couldn't have brought him some
He was-
cheese?
probably hungry
I'm sure he was
his
hungry.
when he was on his way out, and then he was there all night,
Yeah.
and then
I'm sure he
you
was
know.
hungry. I'm just saying, feed the man some cheese, block him up, and give him some water, for God's sake.
he doesn't need to bloat anymore. Also, the sausage probably has too much sodium, which probably lead to bloating. But then again, like the coffee is diuretic, right? So, because like you don't want to be bloating. If you're already stuck, you need to be as thin as possible.
Oh my gosh, the whole reading, they just keep bringing him coffee when he's like thirsty, and I'm like, can you please bring this man some water or a Gatorade or something?
He's gonna get dehydrated.
Oh man.
And I know a thing or two about being
I
dehydrated.
know, right? So while down there, Homer worked to dig out as much rubble as he could, passing it up the passageway in like a little bucket, like assembly line style. For each bucketful that he removed, more rubble would fall, kind of making it a futile effort. After several hours of work, he had to take a break, and before he left, he took some of the burlap sacks that Floyd had brought with him for removing dirt and placed them over Floyd's face to keep the water from dripping on him. So he comes out. I do have a picture of little Homer coming out.
In his skivvies.
No, he put on a coat when he came out. It's a very, like, kind of striking picture, though. And I don't know if this was that day or if this was, like, one of the other several days that he went down.
Oh, he looks,
Rough, right?
yeah, worn out.
I know. And, like, from every description that I've read, it's, like, going down and back up that passageway in and of itself is just, like, exhausting.
Yeah.
Because I think it's, like, 150 feet, but it's 55 feet down.
Yeah, so it's steep.
Yeah, so it's just, like, plus you're having to squeeze through things, plus he's doing, like, very intense manual labor while he's down there.
Plus, no telling what the air quality is.
Yeah. So Homer comes back up. Several other people made attempts to go down to Floyd during the night while Homer was resting, but none of them were able to get to Floyd, and none of them wanted to go back in after they had come out, because apparently this cave is terrifying to go through. Shortly after midnight, Homer went back down again and was able to remove enough rubble to uncover Floyd's torso and upper arms, but this is after working for 5 to 6 hours. And by this point, Floyd is beginning to complain of numbness, which
I
probably
would have expected that much sooner.
Yeah. It's like, wow, you could feel your foot before this? Because
I would have expected that, like,
I'm shocked.
30 minutes in.
Yeah. By Sunday evening, more than 100 people had gathered at the mouth of the cave. Most of them were just kind of hanging out. Some of them were arguing about how to rescue Floyd, but many of them had no experience caving, and a lot of them were just offering solutions that didn't make any sense. So there was a lot of
Let's just
chaos.
tie a rope down there and yank him out.
Oh, they try that later. Don't worry.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's very chaotic at this point, and the people who are, like, native to the area and who are experienced cavers are, like, very frustrated because they're like, no, we're actually trying to help, and organize something.
Y'all are just noise. Go over there.
Yeah, like, we need you guys to leave and get out of here. Also, it's in the middle of Prohibition, but people are, like, drinking.
It's a party.
There was a situation where, like, Floyd, who was, like, obviously having his ups and downs, was asking, I think he asked Homer for a hot toddy, like his mom used to make. And so Homer, and he was like, don't make it with moonshine, make it with the good stuff. And so Homer was like, okay, like, I'll do whatever I need to for you. And so he went to, like, find him some good liquor or whatever. And, like, the local, like, I don't think it was the sheriff, but it was, like, the local law enforcement, whoever was there, like, caught him trying to bring it into the cave and, like, took it away from him. And Homer was like, there's literally so many other people here drinking.
There's a man stuck down there who may or may not survive this.
Yeah.
Let him have this.
He's like, I'm trying to bring this whiskey to my brother who's stuck under a rock.
How about, let me bring this to him. If he comes out of this alive, you can lock both of us up. When we're done, when he's out, you can go lock us in jail for a couple of days, all right? But let's do this first.
Yeah, it was just, I cannot imagine how annoying. All right. So Homer goes back down around 5 p.m. on Sunday. He was able to dig out part of Floyd's lower body, so his hips and his waist. But each time Homer is going down, he would work for 5 to 6 hours, basically until he was exhausted. And then he'd have to go back up to rest. He was also noticing that as he made his way down to Floyd through the passages, that there were things like blankets and food that people had said that they had brought to Floyd left along the passages. Basically, people were lying about having gotten to Floyd and bringing him supplies, which happened a lot. Like, someone also went down.
Well, someone was probably like, I'll do it, and they get halfway and they're like, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
I'm out.
There was one instance where some guy went, he was like, oh, I'll go get him out, and went in there, and he came back sometime later, and he's like, oh, he's dead. And which, of course, Homer was, like, freaking out. But Homer, of course, he's, like, he's supposed to be resting during these periods. And so they send someone else in to check on him. And the guy he's like, no, he's not dead. He's fine. And also, he said this guy never came down. It's just, like, complete fucking chaos. So Homer becomes convinced that he's the only one that can save Floyd.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Floyd has been trapped in the cave for more than 48 hours and is becoming delirious at this point.
I believe it. It's a very stressful situation. You know, the whole, like, food source thing is questionable. Just the physical stress, the mental stress, like, you know, I mean, he's basically in, you know, solitary confinement, if you think about it. You know, it's dark, and there's long periods of time where he is not interacting with people, and so I can totally imagine that, like, he starts imagining people or voices, and then when people and voices are actually there, trying to differentiate between what's real and what's imagined.
Yep, that's exactly it. All right, so I just sent you a picture. That is William Skeets Miller. Skeets is a nickname. He is a reporter for the Courier-Journal, the Louisville Courier-Journal.
Okay.
He arrives on Monday morning. And what is special about Skeets, first of all, they call him Skeets because they said he's no bigger than a mosquito. He was 21 years old, 117 pounds, and 5 foot 5 inches.
He is a tiny little thing.
He's a little guy. So he's not the first reporter to show up, but when he does show up and he asks Homer, who at this point not only is exhausted, but also fucking hates reporters, how Floyd is, Homer says, you can go check on him yourself if you're interested. And so Skeets says, okay. And later, when someone was like, why did you say that? He said, more or less the fragile masculinity thing of, like, I was scared to say no. Like, I was scared of looking like I was scared.
I mean, I'm already a little guy.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I'm a wuss, too. But know.
Honestly...
Small but mighty.
Yes. But honestly, Team Skeets here. Skeets is also, like... Homer and Skeets are, like, our two boys.
All right. I mean, from that picture, it looked like he's been through some things, seen some stuff.
Jeez. So, having no experience in caving at all, literally never been in a cave before, this little 21-year-old kid goes...
Young adult,
whatever.
Come on, don't come after his man.
I know.
He is a
I'm
man.
so sorry. He is a man. He's braver than me. Much braver than me. He goes through these passages, and he's small enough. The way that I read it made it seem like he just, like, fell through the crevice and, like, landed on top of Floyd. So he ends up all the way down with Floyd, second person to, like, make it all the way to him. Spoke to him briefly. Is absolutely terrified, because he's like, where the fuck am I? What is this?
Yeah. What if I get stuck down here, too?
But, like, was obviously very moved by seeing Floyd like this, and realized this is more than just...
It's not just a story.
This is not just a news story. I'm going to do what I can to help get this man out.
This is a person, not a news story.
Yes. So, keep Skeets on the back burner. So Skeets goes down to help and comes back up after a brief introduction. Then comes Lieutenant Robert Burden of the Louisville Fire Department shortly after 12 p.m. Lieutenant Burden was an extremely confident... Sorry, he was extremely confident that he could get Floyd out, as were a lot of people that just heard about it and were like, what? There's a guy stuck in a cave? I'll get him.
What's the... there's from a quote from a book that I love. It was like... something about strive to have the confidence of a mediocre white man.
Oh, yeah. I do strive to have that confidence every day. So, Lieutenant Burden was also looking for a promotion for a captain. He gets on scene, and he's like, I'm going to go down and see Floyd. And he manages to get all the way down. He noted the horrible smell apparently from 3 days of Floyd sitting in his own excrement.
What do you expect? The man can't go anywhere. He has to just go.
And you're feeding him sausage sandwiches and coffee. Stop feeding him that diet. Change his diet up.
Of course it's gonna smell.
I know.
Again, like I said something earlier about the air quality of there.
Yeah, come on. He, like, first noted that it smelled really bad. But then he also noted the dignity and patience with which Floyd conducted himself despite his situation. I was like, okay, weird compliment sandwich, but we'll take it. After
it's like, wow, this man is quite noble sitting in his
sitting in your own poop for 3 days. Your quiet confidence is admirable. So after talking with Floyd, he immediately abandoned his first idea, which had been to use an air drill, because he realized that the passageways were too narrow and there was too much loose rubble. Which, yeah, is why you gotta, like, get there and look at stuff before you're like, I know how to get this person out.
Assess the situation before you assign a solution.
Yeah, there you go. We have so many good phrases that are coming out of this.
Thanks, Floyd. If only we could get Floyd out of this.
I know. So he tells Floyd that he thinks they could try using...
A rope!
To get him out. And Floyd's like, I guess, sure. So they're discussing this on the surface, and some doctors are there, and they're like, you might pull his foot off if you do that. And if you do that, he might bleed to death before he gets out of here. And they're like, nah, it's fine. I'll be fine. Which, my question would be, if you did think that was going to happen, why wouldn't you tourniquet the leg? Like, tie a tourniquet around the leg?
Because if it's so narrow, like, how are they going to... Basically, they they'd have to pull him out
Uh-huh.
and then somehow get on the other side of him.
Yeah, but couldn't you tie a tourniquet on before you ripped his foot off?
How are you going to get down there? Like, if only
Tie it off up here.
If only 2 people can
Have
get...
him do it.
Like, also, can they even get to that access? Or can they just get to where his head is?
I think
Because,
they can...
here, I'm going to pull out the
Okay.
diagram.
Pull out the diagram, please.
All right. That's where you'd have to tourniquet, but they could only access basically his head there. Like, they couldn't even reach,
But
really.
Homer's dug out, like, this much. He's dug out some rubble here. So I
still don't think anyone could get behind.
Okay,
there.
what if...
I mean, they'd have to wait until he was, up maybe at the turnaround.
What if you get him up here and then tie the tourniquet on? How much blood could he lose?
I mean, I agree. I think, if you only got to get him a couple of feet, but also how fast are you able to get him up there?
That's true.
Because it's not a distance thing, it's a time.
Yeah, that's true.
And you're like, how much blood is he losing per second?
I like that we would be the ones over here, like, next to the doctors, being like, okay, but how quickly...
We're just trying to assess the situation.
I'd be like, just take a belt off and tourniquet the leg. Okay, so the doctors are also saying, even if you don't rip his foot off, you are probably definitely going to injure a shoulder or chest muscle, or you're just going to cause
Those will heal.
or you're just going to cause some really gnarly internal injuries. And Lieutenant Burden was like, essentially, if we do nothing, he's going to die. So we're going to try yanking him out with a rope. So
Does not go well.
it's just the dumbest plan. So Homer was like,
well, it's not the dumbest until you start getting into the details and think about it. Because, the simplest solution is oftentimes the best. And it is the simplest, easy first. Like, just tie a rope and yank him out.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a dumb solution. It's an impractical, not ideal solution because of all of the devil's in the details.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm not hating on anyone who's team rope.
I don't think they thought through the rope situation
Probably
as
not.
much as they should have. So Homer goes into town and gets a harness, and then he and Skeets both together go down to Floyd and they get him in the harness. So Skeets stays up in the little upper chamber and Homer is down with Floyd. And then Burden and some others are like up in the upper parts getting ready to pull. And while they're preparing Floyd to do this, Skeets is able to kind of do a little mini interview with Floyd. And so Floyd...
Probably just asking him questions to distract him
Yeah.
while Homer
Yeah.
tries to get him situated.
And so this is when Floyd first tells Skeets how he got down here, which is how we have so much of this information. When it comes time to pull, they start pulling. And
Floyd starts screaming.
And begging for them to stop. And eventually Floyd screaming in pain is too much for Homer to take. And so Homer starts pulling the opposite way on the rope to get everyone else to stop.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like, this is too much on Floyd. We have to stop. So they get ready to...
Did Floyd describe, like, was it, where the harness was the pain, or he could feel his leg trying to detach, or...
I think he was just saying that, like, it just felt like he was getting, like, ripped in half.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
But then when he realized that they were going to leave, he begged Homer to, quote, dope him up and try again because he didn't want to be left down there. Which I'm just like...
Yeah, no, after, we're on day 3?
Yeah.
Almost
just...
day 4? I wouldn't want to be alone anymore either.
Yeah, and he's like, just...
Like, that's the worst part, I think, to me, is not just the being trapped, it's the...
being left
At this
alone.
point,
Yeah.
he probably knows I'm gonna die here and not wanting to die alone.
Yeah, exactly. So the group of would-be rescuers emerged from the cave at 7:30 p.m., and the crowd outside was now over 200 people, which is ridiculous. And the effort had so exhausted all of them that Skeets and Burden both collapsed at the mouth of the cave and had to be carried away. And Homer also had to be taken, like, to a hotel, and they just had to, like, rest for several hours. And at this point, Johnny Gerald, who was a caver friend of Floyd's, and Floyd had actually been asking for him since the beginning, like when Jewel first came down, Floyd had actually asked for Johnny Gerald by name.
When he said, go get my brothers and
some
my friends.
Yeah, he was like, Johnny Gerald, go get him. So he first heard about Floyd being trapped on Saturday afternoon, but when he heard about it, someone was like, oh, but he'll probably be out by nightfall. And Johnny was like, okay, sure. But then by Sunday evening, when he found out that Floyd was still trapped, Gerald began brainstorming his own ideas on how to get him free. And he showed up on the scene right before they attempted to pull Floyd out. And so when Homer, Skeets, and Burden were all taken away, Gerald stepped in to take charge. So he goes down to Floyd and couldn't get down into the crevice, so he just starts widening it, gets it wide enough that he can fit in. He makes several trips down, is slowly starting to dig out more of Floyd's body. He digs out enough that Floyd was able to move his right leg some, but his left leg remained trapped. And he worked as late as Tuesday morning before he had to take an extended break. And when he asked Floyd if he was going to be okay while he left, Floyd reassured him, saying, quote, I can live here 2 weeks if someone will just feed me. I know. By this time, Floyd's story was being reported across the country with headlines such as, quote, Kentuckian trapped alive by 7-ton boulder. Gross understanding of weight. And, quote, man underground 80 hours still lives.
Sounds like bad National Enquirer
headlines. Many of the original local stories printed about Floyd were mostly false. And it was only thanks to Skeets and his first-hand accounts that much of the press coverage began to become more factual. So there's still various rescue attempts being tried. Skeets and Lieutenant Burden, when they are, like, fully rested, they come back. They attempt to use a jack to get the rock off of Floyd's foot. That actually almost works. They make several attempts, but the space to get the jack in is just, like, too small, and the angle is, like, just too awkward, and Skeets just can't, like, get it.
Can't finagle it.
Yeah. And Skeets is the one who's, like, doing all this now, because he's so small, he can, like, fit in there.
He's a hero.
I know! He's just, like, a little... And meanwhile, they have implemented a, quote, human chain system every time they go down to make bringing in new materials easier. So, for example, when they did the jacks, the first one they brought in was too big, and so Skeets, like, asked for a smaller one, so they... Oh, my gosh.
Fans going again.
So, they just, like, assembly line down a smaller one. And they also brought in lights to help warm Floyd and to make navigating the passages easier. So I'm imagining they brought in, like, lights like these, but
Edison bulbs?
Yeah. I mean, not like, I don't know, but, like, I don't know. Gerald also doesn't like Lieutenant Burden, by the way. They butt heads. Probably because it was...
Lieutenant Burden doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah,
except
that's true.
He's just gunning for a promotion, and that's all he cares about.
And Gerald is really concerned about the number of people going in and out. He doesn't like the human chain, and he doesn't like the lights. And he's like, that's going to weaken the structural integrity of these passages. And, like, it's going to increase moisture, which is going to, like, it's just not good for caves.
Yeah.
That are, like, as you mentioned, kind of maintain their own
Well, caves
stuff.
are kind of like living, breathing things almost. Like... Yeah. They've got their little homeostasis, and you don't want to mess with it too much.
Yeah, you don't set up camp in there. So Wednesday, February 4th. So we are 5 days in. After a failed attempt at using the jack, and while Gerald was at home resting. Two men, Everett Maddox and Ben Fishback, stayed behind in the human chain to keep Floyd company. Floyd was extremely upset by the failure of the latest rescue attempt. His moods obviously had been going up and down. And he was crying when the men arrived. Maddox assured him that they were doing all they could and that Gerald would be coming back soon. Because remember, Gerald is the one that Floyd is convinced is gonna get him out.
Well, because he's the, most experienced caver other than him that,
Yeah. Maddox rearranged the quilt that they had wrapped around Floyd to try to keep him warm and gave him some milk to drink. They're also bringing him milk instead of water. Bring him water. And before he left, Floyd asked him to kiss him goodbye. And when he did, Maddox noted that he had purple circles under his eyes. And Floyd began crying again when the two men left. When Maddox and Fishback came out of the cave, they reported that several feet of the passageways were developing large cracks. In response to these reports, John Gerard, which is not Johnny Gerald, very similar names, some guy named John Gerard, goes into the cave with a man named Casey Jones around 2:30 a.m. So this would be Thursday morning. As they are getting close to where Floyd is, they can tell the ceiling of the passageway is coming down in parts. He calls out to Floyd, and Floyd asks him to come down. Jones, knowing that they're in danger now, says that he can't. Floyd, who at this point just wants someone to come sit with him, asks for a drink. Jones tries to give him some coffee. Gerard is now screaming at him to turn back because stuff is coming down. And Floyd begins begging for them to send a doctor down to cut his leg off. And Jones and Gerard both make it out of the cave as part of the passageway caves in. And when they made it out, it was 4 a.m. on Thursday, February the 5th. And I feel like now would be a good time for your joke.
Is the joke not that today, at the time of recording this, is February 5th?
No. Sorry. Although this is topical because it's
added to the darkness there.
I just thought, this is probably the saddest part of the whole thing. I mean, not really. It gets sadder from here, but.
So, why did the old man fall down the well?
He was caving. I don't know.
I guess he didn't see that well.
Nice. I like that.
That was a Shelton joke.
Nice. Guess he didn't see that well. Very nice. Topical.
Yeah.
Relevant.
Well, when you mentioned the baby in the well, I was like, oh, there's this joke that I meant to tell. I was all prepared to tell it last week. When instead I
should tell the joke.
I tried to die.
Yeah, you tried to die. I forgot about Tony's joke. I didn't forget about it. I was saving it. I have to pull it up now because I forgot about it. I forgot what it was. Hold music.
What year was this again that this happened?
1925.
So this is almost the 100-year anniversary. This is the 98th anniversary at the time of recording. Yep. 98th anniversary of Floyd dying.
Oh, he's not dead yet.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry.
Does he die on the 6th?
Nope. Oh no, don't worry. He's got some time.
Well, he did say he could be in there for 2 weeks.
Yep. This is a cow joke, courtesy of our listener, Tony. Mm-hmm. Why do cows have hooves?
I know this one. Tell me.
Because they lactose.
Lactose, that's it. What do you call a cow with 2 legs?
Tall beef. I don't know.
Lean beef.
Oh, lean. Yes. Nice.
Yeah, because I found the video on Instagram today of all the cow jokes. Oh. And lactose.
There's an Instagram of cow jokes?
Well, there's just a reel.
I feel like your Instagram is so much purer than mine. Kentucky Governor William Fields ordered soldiers to Cave City at this point.
What is soldiers gonna do with a cave that can only fit a handful of people at a time?
I'll tell you what they did. They set up a barbed wire perimeter around Sand Cave.
Crowd control.
Yep.
That's probably actually helpful.
Yeah, it was helpful. Outside the fence, vendors gathered to sell hot dogs, sandwiches, and coffee. So, when they needed more coffee to sit down. Yeah. Locals made money by offering their land for parking. Moonshiners sold liquor, and con artists asked people for, quote, donations for the rescuers. So it's basically a fair outside. With all of the access to the mouth of the cave cut off, because they did try to get past the cave in, but it was essentially too unstable. So all of that access is cut off, and the state officially took over rescue attempts. Lieutenant General H.H. Denhart announced, I don't know who the fuck he is or where he came from, but he just shows up and he announced that they are going to dig a shaft. So they bring in volunteers from the Kentucky Rock Asphalt Company, the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, the Southern Signal Company, the U.S. Mines Rescue Team, and engineers from the State Highway Commission. Who did they exclude?
Geologists?
Locals. And geologists.
Scientists?
Actually, I think they did bring in some geologists.
Okay.
After much preparation, they realized that they could not use heavy machinery because the cave, quote, inhaled exhaust from gas-powered engines. So any fumes they emitted during the process would go straight down to Floyd and kill him. Yep. So they were going to have to dig...
It's like I said, caves breathe.
Yeah. They were going to have to dig a 55-foot shaft by hand. So Henry Carmichael, again, who the fuck this guy is, was put in charge of the project. I called him the foreman of the project. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. So he's like, we got this. It's going to be fine. I got 75 volunteers. We're going to dig this shaft in. You want to guess? His estimate?
No.
30 hours.
Oh, gosh.
He said 30 hours. We're going to dig 55 feet by hand. This is all sand, right? So he is estimating 2 feet per hour.
2 feet per hour.
That was great timing. Everyone take a drink. I think that's on the drinking list. We're out of wine.
Jarek interrupts.
Yeah. They start
It's not cute anymore, Jarek.
They start on Thursday. By the time they got 15 feet deep, they were hitting rock because that is how the earth works. Mm-hmm. And when they hit the 30-hour mark, they had made it 17 feet. By Sunday, February 8th, the shaft was only 25 feet deep. At this point, no one has communicated with Floyd in days. They had connected a radio amplifier to a wire that was connected to a light bulb that they had left with Floyd. The amplifier crackled 20 times every minute, which led some people to believe that it was picking up movement from Floyd. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, this means he's still breathing. We can kind of like track that he's alive. On Wednesday, February 11th, the shaft was 44 feet. By this point, though, tests showed that Floyd's light bulb had gone out.
When was the last time he got food? Like the 5th?
Let's see. It was when Maddox was down there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
That was the 5th, I think.
I think so. Yeah. 4th. It was the 4th.
Mm.
Newspapers were running false stories about the situation. Some said that Floyd wasn't stuck at all. It was just a ploy by his family to get money. Which didn't work because his family wasn't receiving money. I bet that would have
pissed Homer off.
I know. Some was saying that Gerald was intentionally blocking rescuers from getting to him. Which was, like, partially true because
he was blocking idiots.
Yeah, they were, like...
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was like they were blocking people who didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
On Saturday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, the shaft finally reached 55 feet, and Carmichael gave orders to start digging sideways. Because you go down, and then you gotta go sideways. It took 2 days to break through the limestone. But on Monday, February 16th at 1:30 p.m., a hole was made to access Floyd again. A rescuer named Ed Brenner entered the cavity, and he came out shortly and announced that Floyd had died. A coroner would later determine that Floyd had likely died on the 13th from a combination of starvation and hypothermia. Which I hate because he died alone of...
But, like, days alone, too. Like,
yes,
he had just days of just slowly starving.
I hope he was unconscious for all. Like,
I'm sure he did become delirious and, like, again, you know, basically he was in solitary confinement, like, in jail, which hasn't that been ruled cruel and unusual punishment?
Yeah.
So anyway, he's probably just completely out of his mind, and then just, yeah.
God, I hate this so much. It's truly the worst. It was deemed too dangerous to try and remove his body. So officials ordered that the shaft be refilled. So the Collins family was allowed to say their goodbyes, and then they just filled in the shaft with his body still in the cave. Neither the Collins family nor any of the rescuers received any compensation for their efforts. Skeets was offered a $50,000 contract from the Chautauqua lecture circuit, from some lecture circuit, which is the equivalent of like $850,000. But he turned it down because Skeets is just a God bless him.
He's a man.
He turned it down and went back to his job at the paper. He's just like a little... Who was like Superman's little buddy?
No, he's Captain America before the serum.
Oh,
I was going to mention that earlier.
Oh, bless him. Okay.
It's Steve Rogers pre-serum.
I love him so much. Well, he gets his dues because the following year he received the Pulitzer for his reporting on the Floyd Collins case. Homer spent 8 months on vaudeville because this was a way to make money. Okay, it's going to sound bad at first. Let me finish. So it was a way to make money off of the story.
Well, I mean, the story's gonna be, you know, people are gonna talk about, like, obviously it turned into a freaking fair, like you said.
Right.
It's a spectacle, and people are gonna talk about it no matter what. You might as well make money off of it.
Right. So his family, like,
if you can get something out of it, do it.
Well, and any money that his family made off of the initial, like, from any donations, literally every bit of that was eaten up by the cost of, like, cleanup and the cost of the initial rescue effort. So his family literally ended up with nothing.
Probably less than nothing.
Yeah. So Homer goes on vaudeville to tell the story to make money because he cannot stand the idea that Floyd's body is going to stay in the cave. And he wants to raise enough money to hire someone to get it out of the cave. So he gets paid $500 a week, which is $8,500 in today's money. Although it says he only netted about $50 a week, which seems jacked. That's still about $850 a week, which is a lot.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But he makes enough money, and I don't know, this math didn't add up to me if he's doing it for 8 months, because in April, which is only 2 months later, April 17th, he was able to hire 7 miners to redig the shaft, which they were probably like, hey, this is pretty easy.
Couldn't hire full-grown adults?
No, it's actually cheaper to hire children to do it.
It always is.
It always
is.
And they were probably like, this is easy. It's like someone has dug this spot before.
Well, also they probably fit better than the
I
adults.
know, right? So they redug the shaft. When they removed the rock that was pinning Floyd's leg down, they were guessing that it was going to weigh 100 pounds, 75 pounds. It weighed 27 pounds. That was it. I know. Doyle, remember?
It makes me want to go put like a 25-pound weight on my leg and
I know. But like, you got to think, it's probably like wedged.
Oh, yeah, no,
yeah.
like, I'm sure there was more to it than that, but I want to see what it would feel like. Be like, okay, like, could I move things? Like, if it was an ideal situation. But also, that would probably explain why, you know, it didn't, crush his leg and break his bones, and why he probably was not numb right away.
Yeah. You remember Doyle from the beginning? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, since it was on his property, Doyle claimed that rock as his and displayed it as a tourist attraction.
Again, that's why I fully support Homer
I know.
selling the story, making money off of it how he can. Because humans are gross.
Well, and you know Homer's going to be telling the story like in the truest, most compassionate way that he can.
Yes, he's going to do it justice.
Yeah. So, the men who helped hoist the body out of the shaft also posed for a picture with it.
Of course.
I'll just show you.
I was about to say, you don't need to text this to me. You can just show me.
No, well, you can just zoom in. It's not the best. It's kind of washed out.
Is he wrapped up?
Yeah, he's wrapped up. There is a picture, I don't know if it's online, but they allegedly took a picture and then they were like, uncover his face so that no one thinks that we just took a picture with like a pile of rags or like just pulled a pile of rags out. Then Floyd was sent to Cave City to be embalmed by J.T. Geralds, who ironically was Johnny Gerald's uncle.
Wonder if he got the friends and family discount.
No. According to Gerald's, Floyd's body was somewhat preserved, although cave crickets, which didn't know that was something I needed to be scared of, cave crickets had eaten off his ears and part of his face.
Delightful.
Gross. Also, okay, remember when we talked about all of the coffee he was drinking and the smell? According to the Undertaker, quote, and I'm quoting this because I don't know how else to say this, quote, he only found one small turd in Floyd's pants.
Cave crickets.
I don't know how to explain that. It doesn't make sense, right? You can't, I mean, you're down there for 2 weeks. You gotta be pooping.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Do you think the cave crickets were eating all the poop? I don't know. That coffee certainly wasn't making him constipated.
Nope.
No. I don't know. It seemed like a strange detail to put in if it wasn't true. Unless they were just like protesting too much. You know, like, no, there's only one piece of poop. There definitely wasn't a whole bunch of poop in his pants.
I don't know. I'm not going to think too much about it.
Okay,
I'm going to think positive things.
I just wanted to let you know that we were coming back to that. All right. On April 26th, Floyd was buried in the family cemetery with a stalagmite headstone.
Aww.
I know. 400 people attended the service. And then in 1927.
Somebody stole the headstone, didn't they?
Worse. Remember I told you Lee Sr. was kind of an asshole?
Yep. What did Daddy Dearest do?
Well, he's hard up for money. And he's also advancing in age. / dementia, maybe. So he sells Crystal Cave, finally, to a dentist named Dr. Harry Thomas. And in the sale, he agreed to allow Floyd's body to be exhumed and displayed in a glass-covered coffin inside the cavern. For this, Lee Sr. made...
So he had to die and then have eternal rest in a cave.
Yeah. He only made $10,000 off of that deal, which is about $170,000.
Did they make fake ears for him?
Yes, they had to, like,
Putty.
redo some stuff. I put tragically question mark, because I don't know if I feel bad for Lee Sr. in this. If he had waited just a little bit longer, the U.S. government would have come in and purchased it for a lot more, because Floyd's death helped push through a motion to convert Mammoth Cave into a national park. Because the government was like, oh, caves are dangerous. Perhaps we want to regulate that. And the government obviously would have paid Lee Sr. a lot more money for Crystal Cave, and probably wouldn't have put in a clause where they had to exhume his son's corpse. So
see, I am of the notion, like, personally, like, I don't care really what happens to my body. Like, I think for me it's silly to you know, be all up in arms about dead bodies and what we do with them, but I understand that not everyone is of that opinion, and for some people it is still very important and meaningful for them to, you know, bury their loved ones, cremate, whatever it is. I think there's some cultures that essentially still mummify and keep them around for a while. Like I'm not trying to, you know, rain on anyone's parade on things. So, like, honestly, for me, I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, sure. If you want to.
I don't think Floyd cares, but I think.
Put my body on display, whatever. But I understand that to other people, that is very offensive to do that to their loved ones, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I think it was mostly his siblings were very upset.
I would definitely be upset, I think, if I was one of them.
Yeah. So, Floyd's body becomes a tourist attraction.
But, like, if it was my brother or sister that I don't have, I'd probably be like, yeah, whatever. I'd only be upset if it was something they would be upset about.
Yeah, yeah. So, ironically, Floyd becomes a tourist attraction again for the second time. And then in 1919...
Well, at least it's attracting, you know, he's finally getting... Or Crystal Cave is finally getting the recognition and the tourist action that he wanted while he was alive.
Yes, this is true. 1929, I assume, grave robbers stole his body and tried to throw it into the Green River. But it got stuck in a bush. And so Dr. Thomas...
Poor Floyd, just getting stuck
right?
places.
I'm like, give him a break. Dr. Thomas recovered it, minus the left leg, which was missing. The injured leg.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The one he was like, cut it off anyway.
I know. Put it back on display, put a lock on it this time. But the thieves were never caught, and the leg was never recovered, which means his leg is just out there somewhere. In 1961, the U.S. government finally purchased Crystal Cave and eventually closed it to the public. In 1989, Floyd was finally... I don't know what happened between 1961 and 1989, but by the way...
Reinterned?
Yes, he was finally reburied at Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery in Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. His final tombstone reads, William Floyd Collins, born July 20th, 1887. Buried April 26th, 1925. Trapped in Sand Cave, January 30th, 1925. Discovered Crystal Cave, January 18th, 1917. Greatest cave explorer ever known.
That's sweet.
Which I love. Floyd turned out to be right about Crystal Cave. When the National Park bought it, it was worth over $2 million in today's money. Mm-hmm. And professional cavers have confirmed that over 400 miles of interconnected passageways within Mammoth Cave connect it to surrounding caves, just like Floyd thought. Ironically, that excludes Sand Cave. So
that was one of the questions I wanted to ask. Figured we'd cover it.
And there's also an off-Broadway musical called Floyd Collins that was produced in 1996 and ran for 25 performances. A 2016 review of the production called it, quote, the finest work of American musical theater, not excluding opera, to come along since Steve Sondheim's Sweeney Todd. So it was very well received. Apparently it's really good. And there's also a book called Trapped. The story of the struggle to rescue Floyd Collins from a Kentucky cave in 1925. That's written by...
If it's not by Skeets, I don't want to read it.
It's not by Skeets. It should have been a pamphlet with that kind of name. It's written by Robert K. Murray and Roger W. Brucker. My words are not working anymore, which is how we know it's the end of the episode. That's where I got a lot of this information, and I think a lot of their information did come from the first-hand accounts from Skeets Miller. Thank you, Skeets. Anyways, I did link that in the show notes because you can read the whole book on archive.com.
Cool.
With a free account. Anyways, if you're a patron, be on the lookout for a bonus episode that we will not be recording tonight because it's 9 o'clock, and also my brain doesn't work anymore.
Tired.
And we're both tired and we're out of wine. But I will explain to Katie why, A, modern technology can't save us, and B, why you should still be afraid of caves. Also, are you still not scared of caves?
No. I'm a little bit worried about cave crickets.
You should.
I'm just kidding.
I don't even know what cave crickets are.
I think they're just crickets who happen to live in the caves.
Alright, well, you want to do our socials and I'm going to look up cave crickets?
If you want to see photos of Hottie Homer and Friendly Floyd
and Skeets.
And ooh, sexy Skeets.
Hmm.
And also the cave diagram. You can check out our Facebook and Instagram at the Tales We Tell podcast. If you want to see these pictures but don't do the social media, you can always go to our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And apparently cave crickets are not appetizing based on the horrendous faces Hannah's making, so we might not be posting. You can just go Google it yourself.
I'm going to show you when you're done.
Otherwise, you can support us. Get yourself some sweet, sweet swag at redbubble.com. We've got a couple different Legos. You can get on just about anything. And if you want to hear that bonus episode about caves and other bonus content, you can become patrons at patreon.com. Subscribers get early access, commercial-free listening, the aforementioned bonus content, stickers, love notes, all the good stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm very distracted by the tongue sticking out, the disgusted faces.
They're camel crickets, basically. Really big camel crickets.
I don't know what camel crickets are.
I'm going to show you a picture. I'll post them. They're awful.
Well, check out our socials then that I just listed to see these crickets. And we'll see you next week. Hopefully I'll still be healthy.
Yep, don't go in caves. Bye.